So today I'm going to review how I use buckets of money, time span of money. Basically, what buckets are: short-term money, long-term money, maybe even intermediate-term money. Some of you may choose to use 3 buckets. I'm currently at 2 buckets, but I'm going to talk about buckets, why mine are designed like they are, and how do buckets fit into my overall analysis of my investments and my retirement plan. So I'm going to wrap that all together. If we have not met, my name is Joe. I've been retired for 6 years. I retired when I was 54, at the top of my career, because I decided I had enough money, enough of people managing my time. I wanted to retire to something. So I'm sharing my journey. I enjoy making these videos. One of the pieces of my job I really enjoyed is sharing experiences, helping grow people, and so people learn from maybe some things I did wrong or even on the occasional right thing I do. So let's jump right into that. So, how do buckets fit in? Well, first thing I'll say is I do use in my spreadsheets, this is a spreadsheet here, or it's actually part of the bucket spreadsheet, but I use the 4% rule of thumb. So from my investments, what's 4% look like, and then how much do I need? So I do that comparison. I also use buckets, and right next to buckets, and I'm going to go into a lot more detail on buckets, but it's also where I came up with my risk profile of 80% equities, 20% fixed. That actually 20% fixed is a calculation. I just didn't say I'm feeling like 80-20 today or I'm feeling like 70-30. It's actually a calculation. So I'm not going to show that calculation. You can do it pretty easily. But I'm going to show why I monitor that. And then I also use a comprehensive software package called Boldin. Okay, so all 4 of these different ways are a different way to look at your retirement. I use all 4 because they're looking at it from different vantage points. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. But I'm an engineer. I like knowing where my plan's going to fail, look at the strengths and weaknesses of both, or all of 4 of these, I guess. I put 3, but all 4 of these. And, see what I come up with that gives me confidence to spend. So that's what I do. I don't think any one of these is perfect. All have drawbacks, all have strengths. So anyway, let's get into bucket 1. Bucket 1 is money for now, okay? And define now, okay? What is now? I'm defining now as my next 10 years, okay? You may say, hey, that's extremely long, Joe. What are you doing there? Well, I looked at history. What's the history of bear markets? That's the downward, and be very careful because the bull market can just be a 2-quarter span of where the GDP grows. That doesn't necessarily mean back to new highs. So you got to look at how the drop. So say it went down 30% over 2 years. How long does it take to come back to new highs? And that's not necessarily 2 months. That's not necessarily a year and a half. History is full of examples. Take a look if you want to see maybe an extreme case, 2000 to 2010. Take a look at that time period, 10 years. 10 years, and that's why I have 10 years in my bucket 1. When I retired, I was at a total, I actually had 3 buckets when I retired. I had 3 years in fixed assets, and I'm going to talk about those in a second. And then I had 3 years in 60-40. Now, quite a bit of change. Well, remember when I retired in 2019, fixed was getting near zero. So I just couldn't stand to get 0% return. So I had three years of money from my investments that I needed were in fixed, and then 3 years in 60-40. And I felt pretty good about the 60-40 fund I was in. Think about it like a Wellington fund. Okay, so this is safety. It's to handle market drama, handle sequence of return risk. I tell my kids, hey, if you need your money in 5 to 7 years, don't invest in the stock market. I'm doing 10, okay? So I do have income, to factor in here. I've got some deferred comp, which is income I did not take while I was working, and that pays out over 10 years. That's one of the things that helped me retire earlier with a lot more confidence. I have a small pension. It's $16,000 a year. It's nice to get. I have some YouTube income. I was not expecting this. Part of that is what's helped me get the 10 years as well and pays for my Roth conversions. And then Social Security. And all these things, what makes bucket one a little complicated and why I like using Boldin is deferred comp. I've got 4 more years of deferred comp coming in. I've got, till my longevity, I got pension coming in. YouTube revenue, I've only modeled that another 3 years. And then I got Social Security coming in a little over 8 years. So there's a lot of moving parts here. But what I need from my investments, I'm targeting I need 10 years from them. What's the next 10 years look like? And I already covered a little history and why I started out with 3 and 3. But these are things like bonds. You can, if you feel comfortable with CDs, put money in CDs. It's FDIC insured. And, I've put some money. I have quite a bit in a money market fund, good returns, simple. I used to try to chase like 0.1, 0.2 return increase. I got tired of doing that. I have most of mine in a money market fund. But you could have a tips ladder. I had I bonds at one time. I was getting like 9% during, maybe 21, 22. T-bills, that's something that's not linked to the market. Now, bonds in 2022 were linked to the market, but there was a lot going on. It's a very unique time, 2022. Don't panic over that. But that's my bucket one. I'm targeting 10 years expenses out of the market in more fixed type assets. Is 10 years the right number for everyone? Absolutely not. It wasn't even right for me when I retired. It's what I'm doing right now. That 10 years, like I said earlier, is what gets me to 80-20. So now I'm going to get into bucket two. As you can see, I put bucket two up here at the top, so you can still see bucket one in case you want to do some comparisons. Guess I don't need my glasses for this. I need them to read, but this is big print. Okay, bucket two, that's my growth engine. Okay, just 100% equities. These are things you have in index funds, maybe some mutual funds. I got my money in a Roth. I got some in a traditional IRA. Most of my money's in a traditional IRA, but this is getting bigger all the time. And I got some money in a brokerage account. That asset location helps me when I want to manage taxes. Okay, and just for fun, more detail, I guess. 17% of this growth engine over here is in international and 5% is in small. I do not specifically target it dividend aristocrats or anything like that. Some people do that. I do not. I'm going for growth. And this money, based on bucket one, I really don't need it for 10 years. So I can manage a lot of market drama, okay? A lot of market drama and lean in on growth, right? Okay, because I'm doing that. So bucket one allows me to go on with my life, to go to travel, to experience life, confidence to spend. Hey, high probability, any drama that goes on in the world, any black swan event, I can manage it here. And my growth engine, it may take a pause for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, but then maybe come back by the time I need it. So that's kind of how this is set up. Some people have 3 buckets. They may have like a bucket 2 that is just in bonds, and they've got bucket 1 is in CDs. So they choose to have, money they need in the first 3 years and the money they need in the next 6 years and then money they need past 10. So any way you want to split that up, the more buckets you have, the more complex it gets. I did have 3 buckets originally because, like I said earlier, I had 3 years getting 0% return and then 3 years in this 60-40, which was my bucket 2, and then the balance was in bucket 3. But I don't need that anymore because bucket 1, getting some decent returns here, 4, 4.5. which isn't great. It's keeping up with inflation, but it's a lot better than it used to be. So all of this plan around 10 years and this growth engine here, if you just do simple math on that, that puts me at my 80-20. Okay, so that's one. I look at this as 80-20. I look at it as buckets. I look at the 4% rule, right? And then I put things in Boldin, right? So bucket 1 and bucket 2 is the plan, along with Boldin, the 80-20. What do I do with that? Once I got everything set up and structured like I want it, well, quarterly, what I do is I review my expenses. I don't do this every week, don't do this every month. My spending varies too much. I just went to Florida on a trip. I spent a little extra money. Got Christmas time. I got a couple weddings this year. My money spending's all over the place. That's what makes the 4% rule kind of complicated for me, and doesn't tell me a lot. But I still do it. So I review my expenses, so update everything, in my spreadsheet inside of Boldin, review the expenses, and then I ask the question, can bucket 1 do its job? Okay, so I started off with 10 years. So I'm going to be at 9 years and 3/4 years. Do I want to take some money out of my growth engine? Okay, that's my bucket 2, and retop this off, because, the stock market's been going up and I still want to always be loaded and ready for that sudden drop that could last up to 10 years, could last 3, 5, like I said before. But I need to be prepared. Topping off the gas tank is what a buddy of mine says. Hey, every quarter I look at, do I want to top off the gas tank? So if the stock market is around new highs, I'll top it off. If the stock market's down, you say more than 5%, I do nothing. And I just let this bucket 1 go down a little bit and wait till it returns up. So it's an opportunistic refill, okay? Opportunistic refill at new highs, near new highs, and you define what new highs is. I use about 5%. I'll top this off so I maintain 10, okay? That's just what I do. And this gives me great confidence as the stock market's down 25%. I go, oh, well, I still got, 9.5 years, 9.25 years, still got 9 years, 8.5. And that may go all the way down. Probably not. We'll see. But I haven't had to do anything in 6 years dramatic other than top it off. I'm keeping that topped off. Then I also go inside of Boldin once a quarter and, enter all my account balances, expected returns, expected inflation, and I stress test that. And I'm going to make a separate video on this in the future. What do I mean stress testing? Well, let's inch up inflation from 3% to 3.5%. Let's take returns, down from 7% down to 6%. Maybe I'm a little more pessimistic. Where does it fail? Maybe I go into expenses. Well, I actually do all these. I'll go into expenses and I'll add like $500 a month, $1,000 a month. What's that do to my plan? And if my expenses go up like that, what's it take in return to offset that? What's the impact on Social Security timing? Maybe I pull Social Security timing in a little bit. Right now, I'm planning on taking that at 69. That just works out for my wife and I. She's 2 years younger than me. It works out as the target. So that's what I do once a quarter, and that gives me great confidence to spend. Confidence to spend, I'm telling you, is a huge deal. This is a huge deal. I expect it to be for you. When you're working, you got a lot of confidence to spend. When you're protecting, you got to do something about it. And my quarterly cadence does that. Now, the other thing I want to add is annually, I do tax planning. This is something that is totally different than working. When you're a W-2 employee, taxes happen to you. When you're in retirement, you create a game plan for taxes, and Boldin does it for you. It does it all for you, says this is what you should be doing. It's very easy, very fun to play with this. And then that, becomes part of my plan, and the taxes that I have to pay on those conversions, comes out as an expense. So I get great confidence in running Boldin to pay the government, write them a check, actually direct deposit. So That's my cadence. So I'm going to wrap this up in the last slide. Bringing it home. Problems with buckets. I talked about how the plan's supposed to work. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the problem with buckets. There's really one big one. It's grade decision-making rules. And this is what people, the anti-bucket people say, when, if the market's down 10%, do I refill bucket one? What about 11%? What about 9.5%? What if it's only 5%, but I think it's getting worse? So there's just gray rules. And honestly, I'm fine with gray rules. And I'll talk about that just in a second. So when to refill buckets. Hey, I got this asset allocation of 80-20. Which one of these takes priority? Okay, if bucket one can't do its job, but that forces me to go to 70-30, which one takes priority? What rules do I want to apply? Are you making this up as you go along? Okay. Also, there's a lot of talk now. This has been out for a few years, but around guardrails around the 4% rule. So 4% rule, we all know what that is, but hey, if the stock market's up, you get to spend it a little more. If the stock market's down or your investments are down, you get to spend it a little less. So just managing between a band instead of hard and fast 4% plus inflation. There's a band around that that allows you to spend more money actually. But folks, I don't spend my money anywhere close to that consistently. I look at the 4% rule, but I don't think it's reality. I've got a couple weddings this year. I've, taken some vacations. My money spending's all over the place. Not that I can't manage it when you zoom out just a little bit, but having a hard and fast 4%, even if you have the guardrails, I just don't think life works out that way for anybody I know. Okay, now maybe you're different. Maybe you're unique, your circumstances. I'm not trying to say my way works for everybody. I'm just trying to share what I do. Life is gray. The key for me in retirement planning is to know the levers. Okay, know the levers inside of your plan. What do I need to keep an eye on? Hey, if inflation gets to 4% consistently, my plan falls apart and I really got to look at my expenses, maybe dial back on some go-go spending. I really got to do that if inflation is 4.5%, whatever that number is. Or if my expenses start to track up by more than $1,000 a month, I really need to take a hard look at that, maybe reduce go-go spending, put off some optional spending. Maybe it's like replacing the windows in your house, or maybe not buy the car this year, put that off a couple years because the market's really down. So know the levers that affect your plan, be able to adapt. This is the key to plan. Know the levers, adapt to what's coming at you. Yeah, I know this is reactionary, but that's retirement planning. And then manage your emotions. What do I do to manage my emotions? I have a retirement group, 2 other guys that intimately know my plan, my spending, every investment, every choice I make. If I'm going to buy a tips ladder instead of my money market fund, I run it by this group. I also run it by Neil. He's a provided financial advisor for me. So I do not pay him. But these are the keys for me. Life is gray. I know we all want it perfectly laid out, and this is the problem with buckets, but buckets allow me to sleep at night, to continue to spend money in my retirement while I'm young. I'm 60 years old, like I've said. I want to be able to spend that. I could just use the 80-20, could just use that, but if the stock market's down 30%, what allows me to sleep at night right there if I rebalance into 80-20? I think humans, me included, I like knowing that's 10 years, that's 6 years, that's 7 years of expenses. And that mentally gives me comfort. Okay, so that number doesn't give me comfort. Buckets give me comfort. I really manage to both. Hopefully this makes sense. Give me some comments. I got a whole lot of videos on buckets. This is a refresh because I got a lot of comments asking me to do this from some new viewers. There's a few thousand new viewers a day. So let me know what's missing for you. It's Joe out.